Hey everyone, AMR back again with another tier list video. So in this one, I'm actually going to be doing the characters from The Office. The Office, in case you didn't know, is probably my favorite TV show of all time. I quote it constantly in my real life as well as in my gameplay videos. But yeah, this video is going to be divided up into their own type of divisions here, where at the very top, which is typically your S tier, is going to be your must-haves. Right below that is great to have. The one right in the middle is they're good to have. I think that they serve a good purpose in the show, but you know, like they're not like a lead role or like a character that's gonna make or break The Office. And then you have can do without, like maybe have one or two episodes a season that's focused on them, but for the most part they just kind of are background noise. And then you have the annex, you know, like you are the silent killer, go back to the annex, you know. So they're not necessarily going to be about how I think that the character as a whole is, but more around like the purpose that they serve for the overall theme of The Office, and how they actually were actually like, contributing to the overall purpose of fulfilling the Office like culture and that kind of stuff. But as always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Helps out a ton. But let's go ahead and jump into it. So for our first up, we have Angela. So Angela is a great to have. I think that if you work in a big enough office that you're bound to have someone. I mean, Angela's kind of an extreme, you know, but you're bound to have someone who is a little bit more strict by the books and will definitely not hesitate to report you to HR for any type of thing. Angela is actually one of those characters who is probably the biggest hypocrite in the entire show. She likes to think and portray that she has like this goody two shoes, I'm better than you type of life, and is very much like a Karen. But not Karen as in the show, but like Karen as like we do in like funny way, like you don't be a Karen. But Angela is actually a huge hypocrite because she ends up sleeping with 3 characters in the Office show. So it's like, I don't know. I think that she, like, The Office wouldn't be the same without her. Like, that's definitely something that would be missing in the series overall if we didn't have her. And that's why I think that she's a great have. I don't necessarily think that she's a good have because, again, the Office probably just wouldn't be the same without that character development that she has with Dwight, you know? So next up here, we have Stanley. I'm going to put Stanley as a good have. He definitely had a couple of episodes that were, like, really, really good where he was the focal point. That being said, you know, he kind of keeps Michael in his place, which is definitely a good thing, but for the most part he is kind of, you know, just background noise. He has like maybe 1 or 2 episodes a season that are all about him, and you know, his character development in the very, very beginning was not that great. It took him till like right around like season 2, season 3 before he actually started to like become a bigger known thing in the whole like overall scheme of how The Office is built out. But that being said, you know, Stanley is an extreme of a character who is just like, I have no respect for my boss, therefore I'm going to put in the minimal effort, and then I'm going to ask for, you know, a salary increase when that time comes around because I don't respect my manager, those kind of things. And so I think The Office did a good job with the character. However, I don't think that he was like a great have. I don't necessarily think that The Office should have gotten rid of him by any means, but I think that they used him the right amount in The Office, if that makes sense. So next up we have Dwight. So Dwight is a must-have character. He is like the brown nose kiss ass of Michael. And, you know, The Office just would not be the same without Dwight. You know, if you have Peacock, which I think is available like free if you have Xfinity or whatever, Peacock does a lot of like the behind the scenes, and they actually have interviews for the role. And there was a lot of people that auditioned for Dwight's character, and I gotta tell you what, Rainn Wilson knocked it out of the park, man. This guy absolutely to a T is everything that you can think of when it comes to the kiss ass in the kiss ass in The Office, trying to, you know, go all the way up to that line, sometimes cross it and then have to reel it back. But you know, he is so much fun, especially the just completely different type of personality that he brings outside of a Michael and a Jim. I mean, that's that perfect balance, and the show just would not be the same without him. So next up we have Karen Filippelli. I think Karen is actually a good have. So hear me out on this one. I was almost going to put her in I can do without. However, I thought back to it, and I think without Karen, we really don't appreciate how much better Pam is for Jim, if that makes sense. She definitely played a huge role in Pam's development into the relationship that Jim and Pam actually have later on in the series. So without Karen, I really don't think that there's a Jim and Pam perception as what we might have wanted. You know, like Karen really pushed us over the line, and she was kind of like a more hard-nosed, like I'm trying to make my way up in the world, whereas Pam was like, I'm perfectly fine living in Scranton, there's nothing wrong with it, and Karen was like, not about that. But that's not Jim, so that's why they didn't really work out that well. Next up we have Kelly. So Kelly is a character that I can do without personally. I know that a lot of people are going to say good have, but I'm probably going to put her in the I can do without. Her character to me is a little bit more of an annoyance than it is a, overall adding to the theme of how The Office is supposed to be portrayed. She has like that quirky personality, which I think is great. And when you have those communications people that like are in charge of the face of the company, answering the phone calls, customer support, that kind of stuff, you definitely want someone like Kelly. But in terms of how The Office typically operates, Kelly doesn't play a huge role in The Office. She is the main reason like she's even in The Office is because she's one of the writers in the show. And she has a very annoying character in my opinion. And I just think that the show could have gone without, and it would have been the same show, honestly. So that's why I'm going to put her in the I can do without. Next up, we have Gabe. I'm going to put Gabe as a good have. So Gabe, I think, is one of those characters that you just kind of like immediately hate, if that makes sense. He is actually played by a guy who is from another TV show that I know called Silicon Valley, and he plays a very interesting role in The Office. So he's basically in charge of keeping the Scranton office happy when they get bought out by Sabre. And so he ends up sparking a relationship with Aaron, and that pisses off Andy. They go at a feud, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. Not going to spoil too much for you, but so I mean, he's not one of those characters that you're supposed to like necessarily fall in love with, but I think that when you have someone like Gabe in the picture, it makes you appreciate like the overall value that Andy brings to the table for Aaron, if that makes sense. They don't necessarily focus on him more than they should, but they definitely don't make his character just like in the background. I think that when they were going over that period of trying to figure out life after Michael Scott, I think that introducing a character like Gabe made a lot of sense. It allowed us to, we weren't going to get Kathy Bates every single episode. Like, she is a very talented actress, and the show just could not like reel her in for that long of a period of time. That's where Gabe came in, where he was kind of like that middleman. And I think it was CBS or NBC. I think it's NBC. NBC was able to strike a deal with him, and then get away with a couple episodes a season with Kathy Bates in the meantime. So he served a purpose, and I think that The Office necessarily wouldn't be the same without him, especially in those later seasons. And that's why he's going to put it as a good have. So next up on this list, we have Meredith. I think Meredith is a great have. I really like Meredith's character. I think that she is really funny. She doesn't necessarily overdo it by any means. I was actually thoroughly impressed with her ability to kind of like play into that role. She's supposed to be this actress in real life who, I don't know how people do this, but she's an actress in real life who is portraying someone who is supposed to be like the ugly character, which is really hurtful. But I think that she played the role super well. She owned it to a core. She's kind of like the slut of The Office, not kind of, but she is the slut of The Office. And she's a nymphomaniac. She's an alcoholic. And she is living life by the seat of her pants. She's got a son who's a stripper. She is slept with so many guys, she's starting to look like one. It is really, really funny that I just really love the character of Meredith, and I don't feel like the awkwardness in The Office would be where it is today without having that tension that Meredith brings with certain scenes, where it's never like a highlight in your face. It's always like behind the scenes. The camera will quickly pan over, like when she had her pelvis that was broken and she had Jim sign the cast. Like, that wasn't the main point of that episode, was for Jim to sign the cast. It was just like a subtle thing that got glanced over, and that right there makes that awkwardness so much better. The tension in the office, what she brings. So next up we have Roy. Roy I'm gonna put as a good have as well. He kind of fits in that role with Karen. They're kind of like similar in that regard, where you don't really appreciate how good Jim is without Roy. Roy is just obviously the wrong choice for Pam. Like there's just there's nothing to even compare about it. You know, Roy is that guy who peaked in high school and now he's working some, you know, blue collar job, and he is trying to be a hard ass all the time. Jim is not like that. You know, Jim is more of a, you know, desk type of, like a desk worker who has a very like sarcastic personality, totally opposite of Roy. Roy's all about being manly man, and that's not necessarily what Pam wants. Pam, when she was with Roy, she was very timid, and after she got with a person that was more her speed, you actually see Pam develop into like this more outspoken character, which I think is really, really beneficial to the overall theme of The Office. So next up we have Daryl. I think Daryl's great. Daryl is one of those characters that I don't necessarily think that he is a must-have. Like, there are going to be some people that think that Craig Robinson is one of those characters that like needs to be in The Office. In my personal opinion, he suits a very, very good role in the warehouse workers, like the guy who is supposed to be the bridgeway between the warehouse workers and the people in the office. Daryl would be the epitome of what that character would be like in real life. He is kind of like, yeah, you guys do that with that Nerf ball upstairs, and Michael's constantly saying like, hey, we have a pretty serious job too. And then there's like, I don't think you understand how serious it is down here. We're using machinery and there's a lot more going on. So, you know, like I think that having Daryl in the office suited a very, very good purpose. But I think that we saw after he ends up working with Jim at that sports agency that he kind of falls off, the character development's no longer there, and then you can really see that the show can thrive without him. Next up, we have Robert California. I'm going to put Robert California as a great have. I think that he was a perfect suit for post Michael Scott. His character was out of this world, and he played it so well. He has like this magnetism that he demands respect. He is super intelligent. He's witty. And he just demands the room when he walks in. The complete opposite of Michael Scott. Michael Scott is, I'm going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Every single time, I'm going to make everything out to be a joke. And, you know, if we get some work done, that's fantastic. But for the most part, I want you guys to be my friends. Robert California, polar opposite. And I think that was a huge dynamic shift that really propelled some of the other characters to step up in their role. And I thought that he played a pretty funny role as well. You know, like, this isn't a party. Or no, this isn't a get-together. This is a party. And then he gets naked, and then he's like that typical big-wig type CEO he does cocaine. He has like a wine cellar, and he's married to someone that he doesn't really like, and so he creates other tension in that regard too. It's kind of funny that the only person that he actually shows some type of timidness is with his actual wife. I thought that was really, really interesting. But yeah, next up we have Charles. I'm going to put Charles as a good to have. I think that he was really, really fun while he was there. But that being said, I think that Charles was the foundation for preparing us for a Robert California, if I'm being quite honest. Charles was a bit too extreme. He had literally no nonsense whatsoever. He is that guy who has that business degree coming in, trying to take a company that is really kind of in shambles and turn it into a profit in front of the CFO, David Wallace. So, you know, I think that he served a really good purpose in the show. But that being said, he's not necessarily someone that you can do without. I think that his character serves purpose, but he's definitely not a focal point in The Office. And he does have a couple episodes in the entire series that are quite good. Next up, we have Phyllis. I'm trying to think about what I want to do with a Phyllis here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Phyllis in great have. So main reason here is that Phyllis actually grows quite a bit as a character on The Office. She starts out as pretty much just a no-name, just like an extra on the cast, and she turns out to be one of the most, when you consider people that are part of the core Office characters, I think that Phyllis is thrown into that category. She's kind of like the mother of the entire Office setting. You know, she has like that soft nature to her. She has her own type of like kinky, weird romance, which is not far off. Like this person that she's portraying totally exists out there. And so you can just like, you connect with someone like that. She seems very real, down to earth, someone you can talk to if you have a problem. And then she actually ends up being like one of the only people that can actually stand her ground against Angela. And I think that that is a very, very fun thing to have. Next up, Pitt. And then we have Oscar. I'm not going to talk about Pitt. I think that he's more annoying. And, you know, like, while I'm at it, let's go ahead and put Clark down there too. And then let's go ahead and put Nell. Pretty much that whole cast of characters right here, just ruined The Office in the later seasons for me. Nell I can't stand. I think that her character's super annoying. Everything that you could despise about someone in an Office setting, she encompasses it all. Clark is just trying to be Jim, but he's not. Sorry. And then you have Pitt, who is like, I'm cute. You're not. And have like, all you would do is exist because they're trying to create tension between Aaron and Andy. Sorry, it is what it is. I'm glad that you can quote the entire Die Hard movie. Cool flex. Don't really care. Next up, we have Oscar. So Oscar is one of those people that is a must-have. In my personal opinion, I think that Oscar was a character that was before his time. So in today's common woke culture, you know, there's always some type of a depiction of someone who is of the same sex marriage or, you know, gay, lesbian, LGBTQ, anything like that. And I think Oscar, his character actually was developed before that whole like social justice type movement came to like be a thing. So they definitely got away with a lot more than they should with how they treated him in the show. But Oscar played that role fantastic. So fun fact, Oscar is not actually gay in real life. He is married to a woman. They have a kid together. And so for someone to come into that role pre, 2015, I'll say, and just kind of nail it, hammer it home, like he's taking no shit from Michael. He ends up getting a free vacation to Europe because he files a complaint that Michael kissed him. Totally should. And I just think that having someone like that in the office to stand their ground, he's supposed to be this really smart guy, and he is. He likes to show it, and he's very opinionated. He just like really hammered home a character that needs to be in the office there. Next up, we have Pam and her Pam Pams. So we're going to go ahead and put Pam in the must-haves. Not a whole lot to talk about here because, she is one of like the main 3 or 4 characters that you associate with the office. There's Pam and Jim, there's Michael and Dwight. And then like you throw a couple more people in there, but for the most part, those are the core 4. Pam is by far one of the best characters in The Office. She encompasses one of the hardest things to portray when you're doing a television series over like a long period of time, 10 years to be quite honest here, I think. And Pam actually made you connect with her on a deep emotional level. She goes through her parents getting a divorce. She goes through getting married. She goes through having kids. She goes through marriage problems. She goes through like conflicts with feeling like she's holding Jim back, and just conflicts in general about how she wants to continue on her career path. It's uncertain. These are real issues that people deal with, and they, like, oddly enough, happen to a lot more people than we think. Pam was giving us that window into a side of a character that I think it's glossed over a little bit too much, and I think that's why so many people really, really enjoy Pam's character, because there's very, very few out there where people just get hooked on an emotional level with some of these characters. Next up, we have D'Angelo Vickers. So I'm going to say I can do without. Again, I think that what they were trying to do here is have a nice little grace period while they were looking for a permanent replacement post Michael Scott. And D'Angelo Vickers was very, joking around, that kind of stuff. But then he had like this bipolar switch that would go into like more serious mode. He had like this secret obsession where he used to be fat and now he's thinner, and he's like fat shaming himself, but no one else is, and so he feels guilty about eating cake, spits it out, and grabs more cake, spits it out. Really funny episode. But I think that he did strike a good balance, but I could do without. If they went straight from a Michael Scott into like Charles right away, or a Michael Scott straight into a Robert California, I think that's totally fine too. Next up, we have David Wallace. I'm going to put David Wallace as a great have. I don't necessarily think that he's a good have. I don't think that I can do without, and he's definitely not someone that I need to have in the show. That being said, David Wallace's character, he's a little bit too unrealistic in my personal opinion. As a CFO, I don't necessarily think that he would, if he knew as much as he knows about how Michael operates on a day-to-day, there's no way that the CFO would allow Michael to continue to manage that branch for as long as he did. I think that David Wallace has that background where he's trying to make sure that the company stays profitable without taking too much of a hit. And, he actually goes through some type of a turnover when Dunder Mifflin gets sold, and he has to figure out what to do. A little bit of character development there. I think that he's a great have. I think the character himself is very valuable to the overall storyline of how The Office is portrayed. But that being said, I don't necessarily that he's a must-have, but he's a great have. Next up, we have Joe. I'm going to say Joe is a good have. Again, I think that she was preparing us for a Robert California type character. She was very serious, came in, had no nonsense type of behavior. She has money. She's in a lot of different avenues in her life, and she has these dogs. She's like an author. She buys property. She's the owner of Sabre, and now they merged in with Dunder Mifflin. So she's set for life. She's your typical woman with money and power, and I think that Kathy Bates nailed the character. I think that she is a good have. I don't necessarily think that she's a great have. I don't think someone like that needs to exist in The Office as a series, but if it were, I'm really glad that they picked Kathy Bates, because I think that she has played this role a lot in her career and she nails it. Next up, we have Todd Packer. I'm gonna put Todd Packer as a good have. I was almost going to say I can do without, but I really think that having at least one character in The Office that identifies with that over-the-line type of humor that Michael exhibits is necessary. That allows us to see back into Michael's past as what was okay back in the day when him and Packer were both on sales. That is part of the reason why Michael thinks it's okay now as a manager to act like that, because of how him and Packer acted when they were just salesmen. And so Packer and Michael, when they get together, they act very inappropriate. I think Packer always acts like that. He's the epitome of just a scumbag, really. He gets DUIs. He's constantly trying to get laid, and he's just overall a bad human being. So I think that the character like that has to exist. I think that the guy that they chose to portray the character, he did super well. He did this same type of role in Anchorman, and I don't know. I don't think that it was great to have a character like that, but it was really, really nice to have, one or two episodes that highlighted him, and that's about it. Next up, we have Erin. I think Erin is a great have. So the main reason why I think Erin is a great have is because she has a lot of that overtly sexual humor go right over her head. She kind of plays that role of, she's obviously not blonde, but she plays that stereotypical dumb blonde type of role where she's very naive. She has a troubled past, and so that rears its head from time to time. And then she's also not immune to the whole office romances that happen, as we see time and time again with Andy, Gabe, and Pitt. And so, I just think that a character like Erin needs to exist in the office setting. I think that a lot of places have a character like that. not like, I'm not saying offices have dumb blondes. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that they have people that are very gullible, and that there's certain things that happen in the office that they just goes right over their head. They're very bubbly, they're nice people, and Erin kind of encompasses that warm-hearted, nice person. She wears her heart on her sleeve, and she just likes to be like seeing the best in people. So next up here we have Kevin. Kevin is 100% a must-have. I'm so upset that The Office took so long to get his character integrated into the like core dynamic of The Office. You know, if you go back and you watch that episode where he thought that he had skin cancer, it's a completely different Kevin. But I'm really glad that Brian Baumgartner came around to figuring out how he wanted to portray Kevin, and he really leaned into that, you know, duh type character. The Office thrives on having someone like that, and especially having someone like that in charge of accounting. Are you kidding me? How many mistakes a person like that could be making on a day-to-day basis? He is such a fun character. He is one of my favorites, and that's why he's a must-have. Andy is a great have. I'm going to be honest with you. If Andy had kept his original take on the character, I'm probably going to put him down here. He was super annoying coming out of Stanford. Like, he was so freaking annoying. But he ended up finding his groove, and he actually became one of those characters that you grow to like a little bit, and then you start to hate him again at the end, when he's just kind of like crying about why me, and I'm just gonna. He just goes rogue. It's really, really weird, and I didn't care for him at the end. But you know, when you think about some of those core people in The Office, you know, he's not the core 4, core 5, whatever. He's definitely in that group of people that you associate with The Office. But to me personally, I know some people are going to put him as must-haves. I don't see him as that. He's a little too freaking annoying. Toby, must-have. Unfortunately, he's not going to go in the annex this time. He is 100% a must-have. There's people, for whatever reason, HR gets this bad rap that they're like the party suckers and all that stuff. And Toby, you know, he says in one of the episodes that he doesn't necessarily have a passion for HR. It just kind of happened that way because the person that he was with, who's now divorced to, wanted him to get married and live with her, and then they found the position with HR. And so it's really funny to see a character who has literally no passion for what they're doing as an occupation. Also, at the same time, people hate him for the job that he already has, that he hates himself. And so having someone who's just like, you know, Michael, you can't really do that, you know, and then Michael's just like, shut up. And I think that having someone like that is super important. And I love Toby. Next up, we have Ryan. I'm going to put Ryan as a good to have / great to have. He's one of those characters that I don't necessarily care for. I think that he leans into the fact a little bit too much in the later seasons that he can just give up and not do anything that he wants. I think that if he kept that original type of behavior where before he got promoted to corporate, if they would have just like gotten rid of his character at that point, which they wouldn't have, he's a writer on the show, I understand that. I would have liked his character a lot more. You know, let him rise up to corporates, have everything go the exact same way, but then just never bring him back when Michael does the Michael Scott Paper Company. You know, I think that would have been a lot better. I think that he ruins it later on for me. He's just too wishy-washy, kind of trying to get back to that status of elite, never ends up being able to achieve that, and then just becomes a really annoying character in general. Next up, Michael Scott. I'm going to put Michael in the very, very top corner. I mean, that's where he deserves to be, honestly. Michael is one of those characters that is the epitome of The Office. A lot of people say that The Office is not The Office without Michael Gary Scott, and I gotta be honest with you, I totally agree. I think that Michael is the epitome of what The Office is supposed to be. I think that he made the show. Steve Carell knocked it out of the freaking park. He has such a satirical humor to him that he's just the epitome of what an inappropriate boss would be if they existed in the workplace. My dad hates watching The Office because of the character of Michael Scott. He thinks that he's super cringy, and that if he had to work with a person like that in the office, that he would for sure probably put in his 2 weeks. He just cannot stand the character at all. He thinks that it has no purpose in the workplace. I think that kind of like leans into the fact why I like him so much, you know? Next up, we got Holly. Holly's a great have. She's not a must-have for me because I feel like she took us away the best thing that The Office had to offer, and that was Michael Scott. I think that it was a great have, though, because ultimately, Michael's biggest prerogative in life is to get married, have kids, and all that stuff. And Holly is finally able to let Michael fulfill that. You know, she goes through a breakup with him. She gets back into reuniting with him. And then they inevitably end up together, have kids. And like, you get like that nice, warm, comforting feeling in the last episode of the season, or the series. And so for that, she's going to be in great. Jim, I'm going to put right in front of Pam. And I think the order goes like... I think the order goes like this, in my personal opinion. So Jim is fantastic. I mean, a guy like Jim exists everywhere. A lot of teams have at least one or two Jims on the team where they're just sarcastic. They act like they don't care, but you know they're going to get their work done. You know they care deep down, at least a little bit. And he just offers that realistic, like, are you seeing this shit kind of person? And he has like that established relationship with Pam. He really, really loves his wife, which is fantastic. He's not like that deadbeat jock type character that we see time and time again, aka the Roy. And I think that he offers so much in the development of Dwight, Pam, and Michael in The Office, along with many others. Okay, so next up we have Creed. Creed, in my opinion, is one of my favorite characters in the show. However, if I'm being honest, he's a good have. So the reason being is that a character like this does not exist in the workplace. There is no way that they had this guy work there that no one knows where he came from and all that kind of stuff. Everyone has a past and everyone knows where they come from, especially Michael, who's been at the company forever. And so for that reason, I think that he's not going to exist. There are some people at the company that you can see and you're like, what do they do here? And like, I don't really know. That could be Creed's role for sure. Except Creed, he's so weird and he says a lot of really, really crazy stuff. And I think that he's a really fun character to have, but I don't necessarily think that he makes or breaks them. Next up, you have Jan, and I think Jan's going to go... she's going to round us out, actually, at the Great Haves. I think that she offered so much to the show, especially because she was Michael's direct report. She ends up being vulnerable, falling for Michael. Not really, but, she just kind of she's like, I have needs and I want them to be fulfilled. Why not you, Michael, for the night? And then she realizes how big of a mistake it was to go for Michael. And then, she kind of drowns her into her own, spiral, ends up dating Michael. And you really see, that head hunter type businesswoman who takes no shit from nobody crumble down, and she ends up getting fired. She goes on this completely different path, and ultimately she gets what she wants in life in the end. But I think that she was a huge character builder for Michael Scott early on in the series. But that's going to do it for us. So the must-haves are obviously going to be Michael, Dwight, Jim, Pam, and rounding us out at the must-haves are going to be Oscar, Kevin, and Toby. In the annex, we have Pitt, Clark, and Nell. So that's going to do it for me. As always, if you disagree, go ahead and post them down below. If you totally agree, go ahead and let me know as well. I really like to see how I fare against my community here. But that's going to do it for this one. I'll catch you next time. See you.